today we want to put in practice what we saw yesterday about the geospatial web, and therefore the lesson that we will see today is this one: assessing open geospatial services with QGIS. So it's the practice related to what we saw yesterday. And in order to be able, every of you to follow correctly the lesson, I ask you, first of all, to open QGIS, because we need to work with QGIS. So first of all, let's do in this way that every of us open QGIS. Meanwhile, I will share my screen, and the lesson is this one, 2.2, assessing open geospatial services, consortium services with QGIS. And therefore we start QGIS. And here we are. The first point is that we start from scratch, and therefore we select new empty file. And in order to have a bit of contextualization, so in order to see what we are doing, let us upload the data that we saw yesterday, that you saw yesterday, specifically the GeoPackage, because the GeoPackage already contains all the description, the style, and so on. So it's the best way. Okay, so for doing that, we remember that we have to add a layer. So select on the QGIS layer, select add layer, and it is a vector layer. So we select layer, add vector layer. Perfect. At this point, we have to select here the file we are interested, because we are interested in a file. In order to search for it, what you can do is to select the three dots here and to search for the folder where you have the data. I'm already in the right folder, and therefore I wait just some minutes in such a way that you browse till you reach your folder, moving as usual here in the folders of your computer. So you arrive where you have the data that we provided for the first lessons. And then once you are here, you select the GIS for Schools GeoPackage, which has this extension. Clicking on it and opening or double clicking on it. Okay, now we have the data here selected, and what we do is to add the file. We can choose which layers we want to add of the file, and we add all of them. Okay. Now we see in the here in the part where we have the table of the content, we see appearing the legend, and we see also that there is the file behind that, and therefore we can close this window because we don't need it anymore. Okay, perfect. So now we have the data for contextualization. It's Is everything okay with you? Were you able of
Okay.
Okay, we can do in this way. When it is okay, you can comment, you can put a comment here in the chat. Let us put here in the chat. Okay. Okay, and you can comment with the thumb up. Okay, or writing if it is okay. And if it is not okay, you can write that is not okay. Wonderful. Now let's go ahead. Let's go ahead with...
Ah no, scusa, stavo scrivendo, volevo scrivere sul suo.
No, sì.
Dov'è?
Perché lui era il monitor condiviso.
Non lo vedo, dov'è il mio?
Now let's go ahead with the services. So the first service, there is somebody who want to ask something. I see one raised hand. Sorry, let me check. People who raised the hand. Ah no, Alessandra, it's you that raised your hand, so you can. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, that was myself before.
You don't have you are not asking something. I imagine.
No. Okay. It was before for the recording.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so let's go ahead in adding services, and the first typology of service that we want to add is the WMS, Web Map Serving. And we remember that in this case, what we are uploading or what we are connecting is simply an image. So we are connecting simply to an image. Wonderful. So let's go here where we have the exercise. And what I suggest you to do is to copy this URL. Copy this URL because we will use it. So where we have these EFAS, https www.efas.eu API WMS request equal get capabilities. We know what it means now. Get capability means that if we put this request, what we have back is a file containing all the data and the functionalities provided by the service, which is a WMS service, a web map service. So a service providing images. Okay, let's see how to use it inside our QGIS. So what we want to do is to add a layer, but in this case, it is a WMS layer. So let's go to layer in QGIS. Let's go to add layer. That is what we want to do. And in analyzing the list, we find add WMS, WMTS layer. And this is what we select. Okay. And there is this pop-up window appearing. First of all, we remember that WMS means simply a web map service. WMTS means that it is a web map service with time. So we can select the specific time. It means that it is not only one map, but there are many maps corresponding to different times. And therefore, we have the possibility of selecting the specific time we are interested in. Okay, so what we want to do now is to add a new service we can connect to. And therefore, you see that here there is nothing activated. We have no services at the moment. What we want to do is to start a new service. So we click on new. Okay, we click on new and we find the name and URL. The URL is exactly what we copied before. So we can paste here what we copied, the get capabilities that we copied before. And I didn't tell you, but this server is the EFA service that we saw yesterday. So the European Flood Awareness Server. Okay, so we give this name. Obviously, it's up to us to decide which is the name that we want to give. We can also call EFAS services, or you can call as you please. Okay, then we ignore all these different options because we are doing something which is very standard, and therefore we select.
Sorry, Maria, can you repeat where is the URL?
Yes,
in the book?
definitely. Yes, the URL is exactly in the beginning when there is WMS, WMTS.
Thank you.
Sorry, can you copy to the chat that link, please?
Yes, sure.
Thank you very much.
Copy here, put in the chat. Okay, you have now in the chat. Okay.
Maria, sorry, I lose the option on the main menu that you select. Sorry for that.
Yes, I will show it again. So delete, go back. If you see now my screen, what we want to do is to add a layer, even if it is a temporary layer, but we want to add a layer. So layer, add a layer, and I go to add WMS or WMTS layer and select this one. Then once I selected this one, I have to add a new service, and therefore I create this new service connection. You see, new. I put in the URL that we copied before, and I put the name of the service, EFA services. Then at this point, once I put everything, I select OK because it is completed. Is it okay with you? Okay, wonderful. So I can do OK. There is also another possibility of doing this step, but let us see just one. Okay, wonderful. Now you see in this page, if you look with me, you see that we have more possibilities. Before there was only the button new, which was active, but on the opposite now, we can also remove something, we can edit something, and we can connect to something. And if we look here, we see that there is the possibility of scrolling a list. Now we have only one service, which is the EFA services, and therefore the list contains just one element. But supposing that you connect with many other services, you will have here a list, and you can select which is the specific server you are interested in. So now we have only one possibility, and is the possibility of connecting to this service, and therefore I connect. If I select connect, I'm connecting to that service, which is the service shown here. If I add more, I would have the possibility of connecting to every of them, obviously moving with the arrow and selecting the correct service here, the service you are interested here. Okay, now we have just this one, so we can connect to to it. What are we doing now? What we are exactly sending to the service the get capability request. Okay, so the server is replying to us, sending us the different layers, the different things that it has available for us. And if you remember, yesterday at a certain point, we were discussing about one specific layer of this service. That was the layer about landslide susceptibility. I don't know if you remember that we look and we comment quickly the different elements that were available in the XML file that we got back as the answer of the server to our get capability. Okay, so the first layer that we want to see together is this layer, the layer that you see here as the number 18, that is called landslide susceptibility. So, how it is possible to select this layer? This is very simple because it is enough to click on it. You don't need to open. I opened, but you don't need. It is enough to click on it in this way. Okay, and once we clicked on it, we can select also which is the specific format of the image we want, but for us it's okay of having teeth, so leave as it is, don't worry about that. Don't worry about the other elements because we are okay with these that is provided. And then at this point, once we have selected it, we can click on add in such a way that the layer is added to our project. What are we doing in selecting adding? In selecting adding, we are sending to the server a request, which is a get map request. So we are asking for getting the map, and the server is giving us back the map. So add, when you do add, and then we can close by now this one, it means that we are sending the request to the server. Please send us the landslide susceptibility map. And this is what we get. So this is just a temporary file. The landslide susceptibility map is not something that we downloaded. It's something that we are connected with. But if at this point we save our project, giving a certain name, as you saw last time, it is possible to say project, I save as, and you put a certain name. You first of all, you browse to the folder when you want to save your project, and this is up to you. I will save here in the GIS for school and activity 2021. I can save here my lesson number 2, and I give the name lesson 2, and I save it. Okay, is it okay with all of you?
No, I'm sorry. I cannot see the image that you show on the screen.
Yeah, you have to be patient because it depends on the connection. It depends on the connection. Now we are connected using Teams, and this is stealing a large part of the band, of the available band. And therefore, it depends really on the velocity of your connection the factor of having this map or not, because this map is not, how to say, is downloaded from a server. And you see that it is a large map, so it requests time, so it depends on your connection. But you see when it's completed, downloaded, you don't see anymore the bar here. I will show you. Now, for instance, I'm changing, oh, probably this is too much. I'm changing the region. And what is happening is that I have active this request, which is the get, we know that is the get map request. And so when it is active and when we are working for obtaining it, you see that now it is also uploading slowly in my computer. But every time you see appearing here this bar, that means that we are connecting with the server there for downloading the data. When the bar disappears, it means that you have completely downloaded the data. But it is something that is dynamic. It's not obtained once for all, but on the opposite, every time we make a change, the QGIS is again requesting to the server to have this specific data.
Sorry, could
Yes.
you show, please, how many layers do you have on your screen, please?
That one you want? Which layer? Do you want to see here the number of layers?
No, because I have many layers. I have double layers and something
besides,
that I have
no.
to remove.
Besides the geo package, I have only the landslide susceptibility.
Okay.
Probably you click more than once, probably, and you have more landslide susceptibility maps. This is one possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there other questions about that?
I have a question. Because I had problems with certificates, I lost the last part when you had the image in QGIS. You did something afterwards, and I missed it.
When I have this image,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yes.
No, the only thing that I did was just to zoom in or zoom out, showing that every time that we zoom, we obtain a new data from the server. So every time that we change something, we are asking again, we are sending to the server the request of get map. And this is evident from this bar appearing here. I hope that you are able to see my cursor here moving. Yes. It means that we are asking the map. And this request time, specifically now, because now we are also using the band for the Teams, for the Teams connection. Mm-hmm. And so this takes time. So let's do in this way, and then we don't we are not interested. It depends on the time, but sooner or later it will appear. Okay, now it's appearing. For you, it could be that it's slower because it depends on the internet that you have available. Okay, then at this point, I want to ask you to repeat exactly the same, but instead of doing that with the landslide susceptibility map, I want you to search for the observed precipitation. So you have to do exactly the same. There is another layer available, which is the layer number 88, observe precipitation, and I want simply you to repeat exactly the same, because then I want to show you something else about this layer. So I will do, but try by yourself, but I will do. Okay. I'm not commenting because I want you to do that. We have already, in this case, we have already the service, and therefore we don't need to add something new, because the data I'm asking you to connect to is already into the EFAS services, and therefore you have simply to add the layer and search for it. Searching for it means that you can scroll the list and you find 88 observed precipitation, or you can use these. You can use this possibility to search for. Like, for instance, I'm search for observe, and I told you that the layer we are interested is the number 88. Okay, and you see it appearing here. Elisa, did you need?
No, I'm sorry, I did a mistake. Sorry.
Okay. Yes,
Good morning.
I thought that it was a mistake. That is
Yeah,
I didn't stop the lesson. Okay.
It was.
Don't worry. So, okay, in order to see this layer, probably is much better to remove temporarily this one, the landslide susceptibility. Okay, so we remove the landslide susceptibility. Did you connect to the layer observed precipitation? For doing that, you have to enter layer, add layer, add WMS, WMTS layer. The service is already active because it's the EFAS service, and I have simply to select in this list, because if I'm not selecting this one, I see the long list of all the services available, and I'm interested in this one, the number 88, observed precipitation. You can scroll the list until you find it, or another possibility is to put here observe, or 88 also. We can put also 88. No, observed, yeah, because 88 is an internal number. So observed, and we find all the layers with observed. And at this point, you select it, simply clicking on it. Once you have selected it, you add to the map. I'm not clicking again add, because if not, I'm adding a second time to the map. Oh, but we see practically nothing here, because this is the providing us the data of precipitation of the last day. If we saw here in the legend, this is the accumulated daily rainfall from 6 UTC of the specified day until 6 UTC of the following day. And if we say nothing is just one day, random day or the last day probably, but we are able of asking, because in this case you see that there is this small clock appearing here, meaning that this is a temporal layer, so it is a web map service temporal. And we see it because there is the clock appearing here. If you look in the case of the landslide susceptibility, this is simply a WMS, is not a WMS time, and you see that there are no clocks appearing. On the opposite, in case of the observed precipitation, both reading the legend that say accumulated daily rainfall, but specifically looking here, we see that there is this clock, meaning that we can select the specific day we are interested in. How it is possible to do that? Well, first of all, are you okay? Are you with me, following me? Wonderful. So let's go back to QGIS, and we can select exactly where there is the clock. So clicking on the clock, there is this temporal appearing, and one possibility is automatic. In this case, automatic means that we are acquiring what the server is providing us, and we have to check on the service website which is the date that they provide. If it is the last one, if it is the first, so the last one means the of the current day. If it is of 1 month ago, if it is the average of 1 month, and so on. If not, we can select a fixed time range. So I select the second one, fixed time range, and just for trying, I put 2020, and I put the 02, so February, and let us put 14, because if I'm not wrong, I checked that that day there was rainy. And the time is starting from 6 o'clock, and then the end is the 2021st. Sorry, I wanted to write 2021st, February 13, February 14, and 6 in the morning. Okay. So I put the day, the 13th of February, as a matter of fact, because it's from 6 in the morning of 13th of February till 6 in the morning of 14 February. Okay, once I put this one, I click on apply, and then I can click on OK and closing. And you see the bar moving. We are connecting to the WMS time and asking for the specific map of that day. And now it is not clear if there was another day without raining, or yes, because you see here something appearing. I don't know if you see here something appearing. Let us check and wait, because it requests time for connecting to this data. Yeah, you see here that in the area we are interested in, there was not rain, but on the opposite, I can see here some rain. So the day was not the perfect day, probably, but this is exactly the way for obtaining the data. And the difference between them is that WMS was simply one map. On the opposite, this WMTS are more maps corresponding to the different time. Okay, is it clear? Then it's just a matter of waiting. Waiting, if you want, you can change the days and so on, and so on. Okay, let us go to the second typology. So we can also switch. We can also click off the data in such a way that we are not asking continuously to the server to provide us this kind of data. Okay, if you want, you can save the project now. Project save in such a way that you have also now this update of the observed precipitation. Okay, let's go ahead and see another case, which is the case of the WFS, because WFS, we remember that they are vector data. So we are connecting not to an image, but to vector data. For doing that, let's go here to the second part of the exercise, where we have WFS. Okay, WFS, I decided to show you to connect to some web feature services that are feature services available at this URL. So you go to WFS, there is URL, and you select the name or the URL of the service, and you copy it. And I will put also in the chat. Okay, now it is in the chat. And I go to my QGIS, and what I want to do is to add a layer, which is a vector layer. Therefore, what we have to do? We have to select a layer, and then to add a layer, and then to search for add a web feature service layer. So before we selected the WMS, now we selected WFS. Okay, select WFS. Exactly like before, but now we are putting a WFS, not a WMS, so with the characteristics of the WFS. The first point is the get capabilities, as a matter of fact. So allowing our QGIS to send a get capability request to the server. And we know that this is common to all the different services. Therefore, what we have to do is to select new. So create a new service connection. New. Okay. We can put here the URL. And we have to decide which name we want to use for this service. This is something that is internal to us, and therefore we can decide as we pleased. Like in the first case, I want then to connect to this name means bacini idrografici, means watershed in Italian, and therefore I give this name watershed to this service. But as a matter of fact, you can decide the name that you prefer. Simply, I try to use the same name in such a way that I remember that this is the watershed. Okay. watershed. Now there are some WFS options. We don't enter in these options, but it is possible to decide the maximum number of features that we want to download and so on and so on. But we leave everything as it is by now. And when we select OK, we see appearing here the watershed as one of the services we can connect to. Okay, so let us select this watershed in this case is already selected because this is the only one. But if you have more, obviously you can scroll this list and select what you want to connect, because once you have here the name of the service you are interested in, you can click on connect and obtain the layers that are available for this service. So what we did in this case, we send to the service a get capability request, and the service answer back saying that it has these 2 layers with this title, with this name. And then now we can decide which is the layer, that is in this case is a vector layer, we are interested in. Is it clear? Okay, fantastic. So let's go back and suppose that I'm interested in this first one. You recognize because it's written secondary. Okay, so we select this one. And once selected, we go here and we add. We click on add. If you see, is add selected layers to the map. We add just the first layer. If we want, we can add also the 2 of them, but we add just the first one. Okay, add. And now we can close it because we don't need any more this window. Okay, and you see that there is this new layer appearing. And this is a vector, a temporary vector layer, but it has all the characteristics of a vector map. In fact, if I want, I can also work on this layer. Oh, you see, first of all, that every time I'm moving, we are sending again the get map request to the server. You can see it because there is this slide bar appearing, showing that we are working. Or better, QGIS is working, is sending a get feature request. Okay, but this is really a vector data because we can try by changing something to this vector. Like this was not possible with the image of before, because you see here the image was an image with already a legend. For us, was not possible to change this legend. We had to take this image as it was, with its legend already pre-compiled. On the opposite, in this case, we can decide the style we want because this is really a vector data. So first of all, by right-clicking on the name of the file, so I right-click, and this is something that you saw already yesterday, and right-clicking, so you go to the name of the file, you right-click, and there is the possibility of working on this layer. Like, for instance, I can change the properties of the file, and among the properties, there is the possibility of changing the symbology. Suppose that I don't like this symbology, that it's a symbology proposed me by QGIS, and suppose that I want to change the opacity of the file, and I prefer to use this style. It's just one of them. You can choose what you want, as a matter of fact. So I'm changing the opacity, and I want to select this one. Once I have selected this specific style for my file, my layer, I click on apply, and then if it is okay, I click on OK, and I exit from this menu. And you see that in this case, we are connecting to a web feature service, but we are able also of deciding the style of this layer. It's not like in the case of the web map service, where we had already a specific style and we couldn't change it. Okay, so at this point, we can save and simply selecting project, save. And the advantage is that every time we open again this project, automatically our QGIS is connecting to this service. We don't need to redo, but simply every time the QGIS is sending the get map request to the service, and we have already them available. Okay, so this is more or less the logic, and it is clear by now. Wonderful. So there is one other part, because at this point there was a second exercise, but I asked you to do that. So there was a second web feature service to connect to. I will show you here. The idea is to have a second web feature service, which is, you can do exactly in the same way. So connecting, and in this case, it is a landslide catalog. Pay attention that this landslide catalog, the difference was that this landslide catalog is a big file. And so it requests time for you every time that you want to download the data. And therefore, you will see appearing many different polygons, because the layer that I suggested you to connect to is a polygonal layer. And the other point I will comment here, because now we are more or less at the end of the lesson, and therefore there is no time to show it on QGIS, but now you have perfectly understood what you want to do. The point is that I want to show you that being this one a vector file, a true vector file, there is the possibility of exporting the data. So one possibility is that you leave in your project the data in this way, simply this way, and it means that every time QGIS will connect with the server. But suppose that you prefer to download this data on your computer in such a way that if the server is not working, if the connection is bad, or many other reasons, you want to have the data on your computer. At this point, it is possible of doing that simply in this way. You go to the layer, and you right click, and you select export. And once selected export, you choose save features as And then there is this window appearing where you can decide, for instance, I want to save the data as ESRI shape files. I put here the name of the data I want. And then if okay, let's go here, like, okay, I'm here. I call it prova 2. Save. And if I click on OK, I'm saving exactly this data on my computer. And I will see appearing the file which is prova 2, the file that I saved. What is the difference between these ID, acque physiche? So the previous one, we can also change the name here. So rename the layer, and I can call it watershed. And on the opposite, I can click here and change the name, rename watershed downloaded. What is the difference between them? The difference is that watershed downloaded is a file on my computer. Watershed is simply something I'm connected to. So this is a permanent file on my computer. This is a file that is only appearing when we are connecting through internet to the server providing this layer. Is it clear? Okay. The last part of the exercise.
Yes, I'm sorry. I have a problem because I have this layer, all these layers, but I cannot see the screen like your. I don't know. I don't know if it's problem of.
It could be that you are zooming with a different level of zooming.
No. Yes, but it's not this problem. I have more or less the screen like you are showing, but I cannot see this last layer.
This watershed downloaded.
Exactly.
Did you follow me and did you save it?
Yeah, exactly. But I can see the layer. I can is activated, but I cannot see. I cannot see the image.
It's very strange. So you have it in here in the legend.
Maybe is a problem. I didn't share something of this program, the QGIS program software.
Try to do it again because
okay. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it again.
Yes. Okay, and we are in the end. The last part of the exercise that I ask you to do by yourself is to repeat exactly the same, but with respect to WCS. So it's something that you can't do now because there is no time. But in this case, it's the web covered service. So the logic is exactly the same, but instead of being a WMS or a WFS, this is a WCS. Is it clear? Okay. And this last part is something that you will do by yourself, exactly as I did the first steps. Okay. So at this point, I'm